My parents sold my car to pay for my sister's weddings, so I built a business from nothing, then refused to lend them a dime. I'm a 24-year-old guy, and that car was the first thing I ever owned outright. It wasn't new, it wasn't fast. It didn't have a backup camera or Bluetooth or any of the stuff my friends' cars had. But to me, that dull gray Honda Civic with the faded paint was everything. I bought it my sophomore year of college after saving up from working weekends at a gas station, mowing lawns, and doing food deliveries until my legs went numb. I remember counting out the crumpled bills at the dealership like it was my graduation ceremony. That day, I drove off feeling like I'd finally earned something that wasn't handed to my sister. First, C. Growing up, Jasmine was always the center of the universe. Private ballet classes, new iPhones every year, expensive summer camps, me. I got hand-me-downs and lectures about being a man and not needing much. I didn't complain, at least not out loud. I figured if I worked hard enough, I could build a life that didn't require their approval. That car gave me that illusion of independence. I didn't have to beg anyone for a ride. I could leave the house when things got tense. I could take spontaneous drives to clear my head. I remember the first time I drove solo out of the city windows down, music blasting, watching the sun dip behind the hills. It wasn't just a trip, it was peace. A pocket of freedom no one could touch, or so I thought. Looking back, I didn't realize how fragile that sense of security was, because while I was out there believing, I had finally carved a small space of dignity for myself. The people who raised me were already planning to rip it away, and it would start with that car. Jasmine has always been the star of the family. Ever since we were kids, it was like she was dipped in golden light, and I was the shadow in her glow. She was the talented one, the beautiful one, the one with potential. I was just the backup, the quiet older brother who was expected to stay out of the way and be proud of her, and for a long time, I played that role. Silently, she was given dance recitals, art lessons, even a short-lived modeling portfolio. I got a pair of shoes once for good grades and a reminder to stop growing so fast. Jasmine failed a semester in college, and they blamed the professors. I made the dean's list, and Dad asked if that meant I'd finally get a real job. I remember once Jasmine threw a fit because her birthday cake had the wrong shade of pink frosting. She was 19. They apologized to her. Meanwhile, I was saving half my meal money just to buy textbooks, and Mom told me not to make Jasmine feel guilty about my choices. The crazy part, I didn't even hate her. I resented the system, the unspoken rule that Jasmine came first, no matter what. It was like we were living in a household with two realities, one where she was royalty, and one where I was the unpaid help. Still, I kept my head down. I focused on work, on school, on building something of my own. That car became my escape pod, my reminder that I didn't have to stay stuck in the hierarchy they created. I thought if I kept my distance, they'd leave me in what little I had alone. But the thing about royalty, they always expect their kingdom to foot the bill. And Jasmine's next royal event was a wedding. It started with a Facebook post, a perfectly filtered photo of Jasmine holding up her hand. Fake surprised, diamond ring gleaming like a lighthouse. He put a ring on it. The caption practically screamed through the screen. That was how I found out in a phone call. No family dinner announcement. Just a flood of congratulatory comments from relatives who barely remembered my name. Later that night, Mom called me into the kitchen. She was beaming, giddy like a teenager, flipping through wedding magazines. Dad sat at the table with his arms crossed, nodding along like a man defeated before the war began. Jasmine pranced in behind them, already throwing out phrases like Tuscan-themed champagne tower and drone videography. "You're going to help your sister make her dream wedding come true, right?" Mom asked, like it was some honor. I remember blinking at her, still stuck on the fact that they didn't even tell me she was engaged. "I mean, financially?" I asked. Dad grunted. "We'll all be pitching in. That's what family does." But family never seemed to mean me until they wanted something. I tried to play it cool. "Well, I'm still recovering from tuition payments. I don't really have spare cash lying around." Jasmine rolled her eyes. "Ugh, it's not like we're asking for your kidney, but that's exactly how it felt like I was being prepped for some emotional surgery. I didn't consent to." The next few days were a blur of Pinterest boards, vendor lists, and budget talk. I kept hearing phrases like, "we'll figure it out," and "just need to be creative." I stayed quiet. thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd respect my boundaries for once. But deep down, I had a bad feeling, and that feeling twisted into dread the night. I came home and found my car wasn't where I parked it. I'd worked a double shift that day, 8 hours at the office. Then 6 delivering food on my scooter since gas prices had been brutal. I was exhausted, soaked from unexpected rain, and all I could think about was getting into my car, blasting some music, and decompressing on the ride home. But when I got to the parking lot behind our apartment, my car was gone. I stood there, blinking through the drizzle, thinking maybe I parked on the other side of the lot. I walked every row twice. Nothing. No broken glass. No notes. No tow sign. Just empty space where freedom used to sit. My heart started pounding. I called the police, thinking maybe it was stolen. Filed a report. They said they'd look into it, but didn't sound hopeful. I called my dad in a panic, explaining everything, hoping he'd come get me. He was quiet for a second, then casually said, "Oh, yeah, we sold it." I remember going still, like the world had just paused. "You what?" "We sold it," he repeated. "We got a good offer from Naveed's cousin. Your mom said you weren't really using it that much anymore. Figured it could help cover the engagement photos and deposit for the venue." "You sold my car." Without asking me, he sounded annoyed. "Don't be dramatic. It's all for your sister. She only gets married once." I couldn't breathe. That car wasn't just metal and tires. It was every late-night grind, every skipped party, every sacrificed comfort. It was the one thing I owned that no one could take away. Or so I thought. When I got home that night, Jasmine was showing off her dress sketches in the living room. She glanced at me and said, "Oh, you found out. Thanks for the donation, big bro." I didn't reply. I just stood there, dripping on the carpet, realizing I wasn't their son. I was their backup plan, and they'd just proven it with the turn of a key. The days that followed felt like I was floating underwater, watching everyone else breathe freely while I slowly drowned. Without my car, my routine collapsed. I started missing shifts at work. The bus route near our house was unreliable, and ride shares were eating into whatever savings I had left. One morning, I was 30 minutes late to a client. Meeting I showed up, sweaty and out of breath, only to be told, "Don't bother coming back." That contract alone had paid my rent. When I told my parents what happened, Mom barely looked up from her phone. "You're smart. You'll bounce back," she said. Jasmine chimed in, half laughing. "Guess you needed a break anyway. You've been working like a donkey for months." I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, smiled even, because if I let myself feel what I really felt, rage, betrayal, humiliation, I wasn't sure I'd recovered at night. I'd sit on the edge of my bed, staring at the blank wall. That car had been more than transport. It was my proof that hard work meant something. That maybe, just maybe, I could pull myself out of the hierarchy my family shoved me into. A grown man asking coworkers for rides, canceling dates because I couldn't afford to Uber across town, skipping groceries to save for a second-hand bike. Jasmine's wedding invites were going out with gold foil and hand-sealed envelopes, while I counted coins at a vending machine, not just by the act, but by the way they laughed through it. Like my loss was a minor hiccup in Jasmine's fairy tale. That week, I stopped eating dinner with them. I stayed in my room, headphones on, phone off, and that's when I stumbled across a video that would change everything. It was 2 a.m. when I found it, some random YouTube video titled, "How I Made $10,000 a Month with Zero Budget." I clicked it out of boredom, expecting another get-rich-quick scam. But the guy wasn't flashy. He talked about freelance video editing, offering services online, building a client base from nothing. Something about his tone hit me. He looked like someone who'd been overlooked too. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I was scouring Reddit threads, joining freelance Discord servers, and watching every tutorial I could find. I still had my old laptop, barely functioning, but it could handle basic editing. I started offering cheap services on Fiverr, YouTube intros, Instagram Reels, even fixing audio for podcasts. The first week, nothing. The second week, I got a $15 gig. Then another. I reinvested everything into better software, a mic, then a refurbished monitor. I worked in my cramped bedroom, editing with headphones on, while Jasmine planned her bachelorette trip in the living room. I told no one, especially not my parents. Every night, I'd crash into bed with aching eyes and sore wrists, But for the first time in weeks, I felt alive. I wasn't just reacting to the betrayal anymore, I was building something because of it. Every click, every export, every PayPal notification felt like revenge on the quietest level, and slowly, I started making more in a week than I used to make in a month at my old job. Jasmine was still playing queen. My parents were still pretending they'd done nothing wrong, but something had shifted. They thought they'd crushed me when they sold my car, but they had unknowingly lit a fire I didn't even know I had. And I wasn't done burning yet by the end of the third month. I was booked out 2 weeks in advance. It started with one small YouTuber shouting out my work on Twitter. That post led to 3 more clients, then 5. Suddenly, I was editing full episodes, thumbnails, reels, even doing branding packages. I raised my rates quietly, cautiously. People kept paying. I upgraded my gear, swapped my old laptop for a used desktop I built piece by piece from Facebook Marketplace. I worked like a ghost. Weekends, even during family dinners, pretending I had extra school stuff. In reality, I was editing content for influencers with 6-figure audiences, while Jasmine screamed at our mom about centerpieces and floral arrangements. One night, as I was queuing exports and sipping instant coffee, Dad knocked on my door. "You still looking for work?" he asked casually. I paused. "Not really. I'm figuring things out." He gave me a look that bordered on amused disbelief. "Hope so. Your sister's wedding is draining us. Be nice if you could contribute a little." I said nothing, just smiled, knowing I had more money in my PayPal account than they probably had in their joint savings. But I wasn't ready to show my hand not yet. Instead, I reinvested again, bought a scooter, got a separate work phone, registered a domain name. I branded myself, created templates, hired a voiceover artist on trial. My DMs were now full of creators asking for availability. I wasn't rich, but I was no longer surviving. I was growing, and none of them had a clue. Every time Jasmine posted another wedding countdown photo, I replied with a polite emoji and got back to work. While they obsessed over aesthetic chairs and guest lists, I was building something real, something mine. And deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before they came knocking again. But next time, I wouldn't answer so politely. The wedding happened in a glittering hall with glass chandeliers and floral walls that looked like something out of a music video. Jasmine wore 2 designer dresses, each more expensive than the car they stole from me. I went, stayed quiet, smiled for pictures, and left early. No one noticed. A few months later, cracks started to show. First, it was subtle. Jasmine's Instagram went from lavish brunches to inspirational quotes about being strong alone. Then came the whispered arguments behind closed doors, her yelling on the phone, slamming doors, storming out in tears. One night, I overheard her sobbing to Mom about credit card debt and him hiding money. Dad grew quieter, more irritable. I'd catch him staring at bills longer than usual. The fridge wasn't as full. The air in the house shifted from celebratory chaos to silent tension. At first, I thought maybe they were just recovering from overspending on the wedding. But then, I heard Jasmine say it, he lost everything in crypto Mom. He promised it would bounce back. Suddenly, it all clicked. Her perfect marriage wasn't just cracking, it was crumbling. The guy she married, the one they all fawned over, had sunk them in debt with some altcoin pump-and-dump scheme. They were bleeding money, and knowing my parents, pride would never let them admit how badly they messed up, so they turned to the one thing they'd always seen as reliable: me. It started with small talk. Mom bringing me tea, Dad asking if I was doing okay at work, Jasmine knocking on my door to check in, even though we hadn't spoken properly in weeks. I knew what was coming. They were circling like vultures in silk, and just as I expected, one night at dinner, Mom said it with a soft smile. "So, we were wondering if you could help us out a little, just temporarily." My fork didn't even make it to my mouth. I looked around that table and realized they didn't see a son. They saw a solution. And I was done being that a week after that dinner. The real ask came. Jasmine knocked on my door with a practiced smile. "Hey, can we talk?" she said, her voice sugary sweet, in that way she always used when she wanted something. I muted my headset and turned around slowly. She closed the door behind her and sat on my bed like it was still hers to invade. "Things are a little tight right now," she started, twirling her hair. "You know, with the honeymoon loans, the venue deposit we still owe, and now his job being complicated. She forced a laugh. Anyway, Mom said you've been working, and I thought maybe you could help us catch up for a bit. I stared at her. Just stared? You mean give you money? She blinked, caught off guard by my flat tone. No, lend it, temporarily, like how you borrowed my car. That shut her up for a second, but not for long. Oh my God, are you seriously still mad about that? That was months ago. It was for my wedding, not like we crashed it or anything. I stood up. You sold something you didn't own without telling me, then laughed in my face, and now you want a loan. She folded her arms. You're being so dramatic. You live here rent-free, remember? Maybe it's time to, I don't know, support the family that's supported you. That was it. I walked over, opened the door, and held it for her. Get out. She stood up slowly, shaking her head like I was the disappointment. I hope you enjoy being alone when you're older, she muttered, brushing past me, and as the door clicked shut, I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger, not even sadness, just clarity. They never saw me as family, just a fallback fund in human form. And now, they'd learn what it felt like to be truly cut off. The silence didn't last long. 3 days after, I threw Jasmine out of my room. Dad called a family meeting. We hadn't had one since I was 17 and got blamed for a broken vase. Jasmine actually shattered. I knew what was coming, but I showed up anyway, come ready, unwilling to let them talk over me this time. We sat at the dining table. Dad at the head, Mom beside him, Jasmine sulking with her arms crossed. I took the seat opposite them, perfectly still. Dad cleared his throat. We're not here to fight. We're just concerned. You've changed. You're cold. I raised an eyebrow. You mean I stopped letting you walk over me? Mom gave me that disappointed mother look. We're family, honey. Families sacrifice. When Jasmine needed help, we all did what we had to. You mean you stole from me? It wasn't stealing, Jasmine snapped. You weren't using the car. I used it every day to survive, I said, my voice sharp now. You didn't just take my vehicle. You took my independence, my dignity, and you treated it like a punchline. Dad leaned forward. Okay, maybe we made mistakes. But look at you, you're clearly doing well. We're not asking for much, just a little support. I looked each of them in the eyes. You didn't care how I was doing when I was walking 5 miles to work. Or, when I lost jobs because of your choices, you only noticed me once I became useful again. And I'm not your backup plan. Not anymore. They all went quiet. Jasmine scoffed and muttered something under her breath. I stood up. I don't owe you anything. Not money. Not time. Not loyalty. Then I walked out, heart pounding but light. That moment wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. For the first time in my life, I got the final word, and I wasn't finished yet. After that confrontation, the air in the house changed. They didn't speak to me for days. No morning greetings, no passive-aggressive sighs, just silence. But I didn't mind. It was quieter, cleaner, like finally being able to breathe after years of secondhand smoke. I dove deeper into my work, took on bigger clients, started collaborating with creators in Europe and the US, my PayPal. Balance wasn't just growing, it was stacking. 2 months later, I moved out, no warning, no goodbye dinner. I just loaded up my gear, packed what little I owned, and left a short note. Don't call me unless it's not about money. I rented a small studio apartment across town, nothing fancy, but it was mine. No one barging into my room, no guilt-tripping over dinner, no Jasmine blasting pop music while I edited voiceovers. Just quiet, focus, and freedom. Mom texted a week later. Your father isn't doing well. We need your help. Just for a little while. Then Jasmine, ironically, guess money really does change people. Hope you're happy ignoring your family. I didn't reply. I muted the group chat, deleted their contact names, and kept building. Every ignored message was its own kind of healing. Not revenge-clarity. I bought a new car, cash, nicer than the one they sold. I took a picture of the keys in my palm and stared at it for a long time before locking it away in a private folder labeled proof. Sometimes I'd drive past our old house, windows up, music low, just to remind myself how far I'd come, that I'd be the helper, the supporter, the sacrifice. Now they couldn't even reach me with a dollar sign. And the best part? I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. People always expect some dramatic finale. A screaming match. A social media call-out. Some grand revenge where I show up at Jasmine's doorstep in a luxury car just to say, "Look who's struggling now." But that's not how this ends, because I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace these days. I wake up in a place that's quiet. I make coffee in a chipped mug I found at a thrift shop and sit by the window while emails roll in. Clients respect my work. My name shows up in YouTube credits, in short film reels, in product promos. No one here knows me as Jasmine's brother. They know me. I've blocked their numbers completely now. It was the last boundary I needed to set. Not because I hate them, but because I finally understand something. They will never change, and waiting for them to apologize. To understand what they did was just another way of handing them power. So I stopped waiting. I forgave them in silence, not for their sake, but for mine. So I could let go of the bitterness and keep building something beautiful from the ashes they left me in a few weeks ago. I parked my new car by the beach, windows down, same playlist from my first road trip years ago. I let the wind hit my face, watched the sun dip behind the water, and for the first time in a long time, I felt full. Whole. They sold my car like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. But what they didn't know was that they gave me the one thing I never had before. A reason to bet on myself, and I did. Now I own every inch of this life, and they'll never be invited into it again.